All right, everyone. And today was a wild day in the markets once again. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you the daily chart for the Qs. We're also going to look at the 1 hour chart because I think it tells a very compelling and very interesting story. And we're also going to then talk about IWM, SPY, and then I want to get into a little bit of TLT. And that also throws in there TMF because those technicals could be getting pretty interesting for us, especially in relation to what we could potentially be seeing in the Qs and in the SPY. So with that said, I'll break into the commentary on those charts. If you guys want to see further commentary, see my trades, see my live trading as I join StockMo over at the Discord. We have a link down in the description. Come on over and join us over there. I'll tell you more about it later, but do use code word doctor when you sign up. You're going to be happy that you did. Let's pop this up here for the charts for the Qs for you. So QQQ. Look at that rising wedge pattern that I said. And when we look at it on the daily chart, there we go. This candle looks a little bit sketchy out there. It's like, well, did we actually break down underneath that? And what else should we be paying attention to? Well, I have the major pivots on here for you for where we hit those three important peaks back here. And so with those important peaks that we have. So we have this all-time high, the all-time high before that. And then we also have down in here this peak that happened in between the two of them. Where do we line up today? Well, let's go down to the 1 hour chart and we're going to stretch that out and we're going to zoom in because what we see, and I really want to focus on today's candles that we got. Look at the indecisiveness in the chop that we got here. This could tell us that the next major candle that we get as early as tomorrow, they could set the tone for the week. Will we see us drop out of this rising wedge pattern? It looks like we did in the pre-market hours, but we didn't get that rejection. As soon as the market opened, the market went up and it stayed up above this major trend line that we have here at 533/3. My goodness, 533.03, which was that middle point that we had between the two previous all-time highs. So holding on to that is a very bullish thing. Staying inside of this rising wedge pattern allows us to head up a little bit longer. We tried to go north of it, couldn't break the two lines that we have in here between this top that we had during the pre-market hours yesterday and also the previous all-time high before the current all-time high. Just couldn't get over it. So we tested the ceiling, we tested the floor. So far the floor is holding, the ceiling did not. It gave way. We had a nice little recovery. Bit of a scare in the pre-market hours this morning with that Trump news, all that kind of stuff. However, turn things around in the near term, so we want to be watchful for that. The RSI is still happening to be up in bullish territory, so I remain cautiously bullish, but I think tomorrow could be an important day. If we take down the technicals and just look at the moving averages, we're still riding on top the 5 EMA. We tried to break down through it today, couldn't do it, traveled back north. That goes along with the other confluence that we have across the other technicals. And like I said, we did have a lot of indecision in order to make that candle. It was not easy to decide to stay up where we're at for that close. Tomorrow's going to be very interesting because it could tell us if it sets us up for bullishness for next week or with the Fed coming out. And this is a big Fed meeting that we have happening with Jerome Powell speaking, a hawkish Fed with some commentary on that how higher for longer or what inflation they expect. Plus we get the summary of economic projections. It's going to be wild going into next week. So we'll either be wildly bullish and put in new all-time highs potentially, or we end up being bearish when we tumble back down. Maybe we finally get those gap fills, which is going to be painful in the near term. But if you're a long-term investor, you don't sweat the small stuff. But if you are doing trading, you certainly want to be aware of it. So remember this rising wedge pattern that I had talked about here for you. And I also have updated the way that I organize my technicals, making it easier to really show you the things that I want you to see. I've also included this watermark on the back so you can see what chart I'm looking at, the 3 Qs for the 1-day chart. When we move over to SPY here, again, the daily chart right here is an example of one of the gaps that we're looking at down here that we kind of left behind. The SPY almost filled it when we got this low going back to Friday the 23rd, but we didn't fully fill it down to 570. And I'm not saying that we get there, but we are watching that rising wedge pattern. Let's look at the 1 hour chart just to see what it looks like for SPY. And that's not a bad look for the chart as we look at it here. Once again, we're down below the trend line, broke up back above it. We're still in the rising wedge pattern. It's a bearish reversal pattern, but only if you break out, get rejected, and then sell back down again. We didn't get that rejection. Instead, resistance did not hold, and now we have it as support again. So we're back in there, and then we have this line up here at 605.21, which is one of the previous all-time highs that we couldn't break yesterday in the pre-market. Sold down to find out where the floor was, apparently 599, which is an important area, important line of support for us, did hold for us, and that allowed us to bounce back up. And this suggests that maybe tomorrow ends up being a pretty good day. We'll see. But once again, that indecision shows up in here, but you can see the market did sell up, especially for the S&P 500. We did get a little bit of bottom wicks here showing potentially that bullishness. We'll see how things settle out in the post market. For IWM, inverse head and shoulders, I said that we want to see a retest of the neckline. We don't necessarily have to. I just think that it's better if we do. Selling down a little bit, not taking that tariff news the best. These companies, the small caps, the Russell 2000s, are the least insulated against economic stress. So what do we see for that? Almost to this yellow trend line that's on here. I need to redo the organization of my technicals, but this yellow trend line, that is still support for us. We didn't test it today during the regular trading hours. If we take a look at the 1 hour chart, we actually did spot on. Look at that test, that candle coming right down exactly where we should have found that support. So far we did, and we'll see if it holds up. The 1 hour support, or the 1 hour moving averages that we have here, the 50, the 13, and the 5, looking a little bit bearish as we get into the post market, but tomorrow I think is going to be, once again, still think tomorrow is a very telling day for us for how it sets us up for next week. And I wouldn't be surprised to find out that the market's worried about what the Fed has to say, especially with the Trump tariff news that we got yesterday. Well, last night. I got it this morning when I woke up and started reading up on things, and I shared it with you in my morning video. So TLT, TMF, we're going to talk about those in a moment. Right now, let's look at the 20-year Treasury yield, because we're actually getting some significant bearish signals for the 20-year yield, which is actually a good thing for people who like TLT, who like TMF, the long-term treasuries, who believe that they've been beat up over time and that we're near negative peak sentiment on it, which means that potentially it starts turning around, and contrarian is the way to go. Our price action has moved down below the 50 EMA. If it stays there, we're good. And then also the 5 cross down below the 13. That's the green down over the yellow. Also a bearish signal. The RSI has also crossed down below 50 as well. So it is possible that we do sell down further from here, and especially if we get that cross of the moving averages. Let me show you back here the last time that we had a nice old cross between the 13 and the 50, which happened right here. You guys can see the sort of drop that we got during that time. And the drop in yields means, well, look what happened to TLT. We didn't get a drop in prices, we got a rise in prices, and it's because the bond price moves inversely to the yield. In other words, as the bond price rises, you don't need to be incentivized as much in order to get it. As the bond prices drop, you need to further incentive in order to purchase that bond, and that incentive is the yield that it provides. So we actually have a lot of bullishness here. Let's look at the EMAs first. We have the 5/13 bullish. We actually got that cross going all the way back to this candle on June 4th. Checked the 50, got rejected, and then when we actually recovered the 5 and the 13, the 5 stayed above the 13, by the way, when we recovered that on the 10th of June, that was a strong signal. Further testing of it yesterday, and we had that strong move up today. This is a very bullish sign to see us back up above that 50 EMA. Watch for the crosses between the 5 and the 13. Now, if you love TLT, then you might really, really love TMF, because it's the triple leverage version of it, which is really nice for these short-term moves because it had a 3.5% day today, just testing the 50 SMA that's on here. Let me put that up there. Actually, it was the EMA that it was testing. There we go. I have similar colors for them. I got confused. There we go. The 50 EMA is what we have tested so far. Didn't quite break above it, but you want to analyze the yield chart and TLT in order to understand what's going to happen with TMF. So this rejection here might not necessarily be the thing that sends it back down, because this is a derivative of what we get from the 20-year Treasury prices, and it's a derivative of what we get from the performance for TLT. So analyzing TLT's chart, this is the one that we want to study because it should help drive TMF's prices. And like I said, we have a lot of bullish indication, including the RSI up over 50. It's at 57 on TLT for the week. For the day. For the week, it's at 48.65. Look at that massive candle that we have here. An indecisive candle. Actually, this was the indecisive candle we traded up. That's a bullish signal. So a little bit more indecision, some selling pressure as we struggle a little bit with those bond prices. But today is probably the nail in the coffin for the bears in terms of those bond prices in the near term anyway. Our struggles have not yet gone away for the U.S. Treasuries, but this on the weekly chart is a very good sign. Get that RSI up over 50. That's even better. And on the monthly chart, we're at 44, just below that 50. But if we can get the weekly above 50, we'll likely get the monthly also above 50. And then where do we find resistance for this thing? The monthly chart's a great place to look for that. So I actually have it on here. We could move all the way up to 94. So another $7 onto what we have currently before we start to hit that massive resistance that happens to be up here. So that $7 is about 7 or 8%, which means that would about 20 to 25% move for TMF, which could be pretty darn incredible to move up from here, because that could be another $10 on top of what we currently have. So I may take a position. Now, mind you, I have a position in TMF. I may actually take an options position on this to see if we can get a further climb, especially if we continue to experience weakness in the stock market, as the two of them are likely to move inverse to one another. So just a little bit more to help me hedge back the other way. So guys, I talked about the link in the description for the Discord. You can see more of my analyses. You can see what I'm buying and selling. If you like to do that sort of thing, you can check it out. You can be like, okay, well, is this something that I also want to take part in? You get to choose. It's your buys, your sells, your decisions. I will never tell you what to buy or sell, but you do your research, you see if you agree with what I have going, and you can see my conviction and my plays over there. Like I said, at the Discord, I'm just one of the panel experts that are over there. There's a whole team of us that help support you during your drive towards financial freedom, building alpha in your portfolio. And not only do you have the experts there, but you also have the advanced charting tools, the AI tools, the bread bot, which can tell you when those massive moves are coming up or down for your favorite plays. And you can use options in order to play both directions of it like I do. I love using it for building alpha in my portfolio, and zero DTE trading for those live trade videos when you come on over, and you see those over at the Discord as well. And if you want to learn about trading options, if you want to learn about trading using technicals, if you want to learn about technical analysis, there's some coursework down in the description for Stockmo Academy. It's a personal friend of mine. He's like a brother to me. I've known him for the past 17 years. We worked together. Now we're back working together in the YouTube space, in the financial space, here to support everybody through what we know to educate the people for how things work in the stock market, bond market, crypto market, you name it. Come on over. Those courses down in the description. Code word doctor is going to give you a massive discount on them. Also, down in the description, code word doctor for that Discord. It's going to get you 50% off your first month's sign up. And then after that, moves up to full price. But I think you'll find for less than $1 a day for that initial sign up month, you're going to find incredible value that's going to keep you coming back for more, including a community of thousands of members who stand in testament for just how valuable having that community, having that Discord, the products, services, and that coursework is. Come on over and join us. Check it out. See what you think. I think you're going to love it. Guys, thank you for watching. I am Dr. Stock, Doctor of Education. Remember, my friends, that learning is earning. We'll see you next video.